Hey guys, tonight we step into a Nile-side palace buzzing with drums, roasted goose and wine-heavy air. But you probably won't make it to dessert. It begins with warmth. Not the cosy kind you feel curled under your favourite blanket, but the kind that rises off sun-baked stone and blasts you in the face like a kiln. You're walking barefoot across the tiled courtyard of an upper-class Egyptian villa, and your soles are already reconsidering this adventure. Papyrus palms sway above you, casting jittery shadows on sandstone walls painted with scenes of Horus and Anubis, in colours so vibrant they look freshly brushed. You're not here by accident. No, tonight you've received the honour, or misfortune, of being invited to a nobleman's funerary feast. It's a blowout in honour of a very dead someone whose name you can't quite pronounce, but whose tomb apparently needs a lively send-off. Think of it as a mix between a state dinner, a drunken wake, and a half-lit séance. You've barely crossed the threshold when a servant with shaved eyebrows and golden earrings greets you with a shallow bow and a shallow bowl of beer. You drink. It's warm and chunky. We'll come back to that. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here, and let me know where in the world you're tuning in from and what time it is where you are. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The scent hits next. A thick stew of roasted meats, dried lotus petals, frankincense, goat sweat, and whatever that perfumed oil is on your neck, it's giving ritualistic citrus cow. You're ushered in through high wooden doors into a long pillared room that somehow stays cool despite the heat outside. Rows of low tables are already packed with guests. Priests in leopard skins, bureaucrats in bleached linen, and dancers with gold discs balanced delicately on their heads. You plop onto a cushion that's too firm to be kind, and you're immediately handed another cup of that chewy beer. Historians still argue whether this beer was genuinely meant for enjoyment, or just an efficient way to knock people sideways. It's thick, unfiltered and fermented using open crocks full of date paste and wild yeast. Some say they'd drink it today, some say those people should be locked up. As you sip, carefully now, a parade of servers marches out with the first course. Think of it like an edible zoo. There's roasted ibex, honey-glazed goose, skewered catfish, and what might generously be called mystery sausage. A fanboy across the table, who smells strongly of garlic and history, explains that these dishes mirror offerings made to Osiris himself. That is, if Osiris liked his goat medium rare and his beer sludgy. The music kicks up, loud. A trio of female musicians pluck harps while a boy thumps a hand drum the size of your torso. The melody is oddly hypnotic, with sharp minor intervals and a rhythm that seems to stumble and recover like someone who's had one too many temple offerings. You can't help but tap your toe, or is that just a fly landing? You glance around and realise, this isn't just a meal, this is performance, politics, and piety all rolled into one. Every guest is watching every other guest. Who gets the best cut of goose? Who snubbed the high priest's toast? Who accidentally sat in the spot reserved for the embalmer's mistress? This is ancient social climbing, on sandals slick with honey glaze. Suddenly, a man bursts in wearing more eye makeup than a rock concert. He's draped in linen dyed faint blue, a luxury colour reserved for high-ranking temple officials. He raises his arms and begins a chant so nasal it could pass for bagpipes. Everyone quiets. You try to clap but realise, this is a prayer. To whom? Hard to say. Probably several gods at once. Egyptians like to cover their spiritual bases. The chant ends and the food resumes. You find yourself nibbling on something crunchy. Turns out it's roasted locust. High in protein, low in appeal. Still, you pretend it's kettle corn. Another guest laughs and offers you a napkin made of papyrus. You thank them with a slight nod, which here could mean thank you, or I'm accepting a marriage proposal. The social cues are slippery. Oh, and remember that chunky beer from earlier? It's not going anywhere. Servants keep refilling your shallow clay cup, which you now notice is stamped with a scarab design, supposedly to ward off stomach demons. You suspect it's not working. Above you, painted on the ceiling, is a celestial barge carrying Ra across a golden sky. It's beautiful and vaguely dizzying. Maybe it's the warm drink. Maybe it's the fact that you've been sitting cross-legged on a reed mat for 2 hours. Either way, you're beginning to feel a little too involved in the afterlife preparations. Suddenly, Someone releases a dove into the banquet hall. It flaps wildly, knocking over a pitcher of wine before perching on a ceremonial bust of Thoth. Everyone cheers, you're not sure why. Outside, the sun dips below the horizon, casting the Nile in glowing amber. Inside, the feast is just getting started. You overhear a guest whisper something about a midnight ritual at the tomb. You try not to look too interested, or too afraid, because this is Egypt, 1450 BCE. And you, my friend, have no idea what's about to unfold. You blink, and already the light from the sun has turned golden, filtering through thin linen curtains and bathing the room in a soft, dusty glow. The air feels heavier now, not just from heat, but from incense and expectation. There's a kind of rhythm to the room, like it's breathing in time with the flicker of oil lamps. And you're about to attend a celebration not just for the living, but for the dead. See, tonight's feast isn't your run-of-the-mill dinner party. It's a Perean Heru, a coming-forth-by-day banquet, hosted in honour of a nobleman who recently shuffled off this mortal coil and into the care of Osiris. Your name's not on the stone-carved guest list, but someone slipped your name in anyway. Maybe you're a foreign dignitary. Maybe you're a curious time tourist. Maybe you're just unlucky. Either way, your attendance is an obligation, especially since the dead guy's Ka, his life force, is believed to still be hovering around, watching, judging, waiting for your toast. No pressure. You're quickly reminded that ancient Egyptian society was obsessed with the afterlife. Death wasn't an ending, it was a pivot. A grand transition requiring all the flair, favours, food and fermented drinks one could muster. And these funerary feasts, they were theatrical, sacred and over the top. Tonight's event is held in the nobleman's garden, part of a villa estate nestled right near the Nile, surrounded by fig trees, date palms and high mud brick walls, painted with scenes from the Book of the Dead. A small pavilion sits in the centre of the courtyard, its white linens rippling in the breeze like ghostly sails. That's where the priesthood will perform rites later. For now, the space is a buzzing blur of voices, music, and the occasional, "Was that a monkey running across the buffet table?" Someone hands you a folded leaf smeared with dark paste. It's masticated lotus, chewed by servants, then pressed into a calming balm. Or maybe it's a mild narcotic. Historians still argue whether these banquet treats were mood enhancers, divine offerings, or just ancient equivalents of chewing gum. Either way, you pop it in your mouth and instantly regret the taste. Bitter, earthy, and vaguely like overcooked broccoli. Nearby, a group of women in semi-sheer dresses are laughing around a bronze mirror. One of them waves you over and smudges your eyes with powdered malachite. You're flattered. Also possibly poisoned. That eyeliner? Yeah, it contains lead. Ancient beauty was nothing if not committed. As twilight deepens, the atmosphere becomes more reverent. Guests begin raising cups of beer and wine, usually both at the same time to honour the deceased. Each person delivers a short tribute, a kind of mini-eulogy mixed with praise and dramatic flair. You catch phrases like, "He always stored his grain well," and "No one owned finer sandals." Apparently in death as in life, brand names matter. Then comes your turn. You stand, wobbly from sun and sentiment. You clear your throat. Everyone's watching. A priest leans forward, holding a carved staff tipped with a tiny golden falcon. You raise your cup and, well, ramble something about how this deceased had nice teeth, and probably would have loved this spread. Silence, then polite clapping. You sit down quickly and pretend to eat a fig. To your left, a scribe is etching hieroglyphs onto a wax board. He's chronicling everything. The food served, the prayers spoken, who spilled what on whom. This isn't just a party, it's documentation, an archive, a performance for the ages, or at least for the family tomb. And then, bam! A sudden hush falls over the garden, everyone stands. Out walks the embalmer. No one messes with the embalmer. Dressed in clean linen and an unnervingly calm expression, he carries a bundle of herbs and what looks suspiciously like a brain hook. He doesn't speak. He just circles the room slowly, letting the scent of myrrh and natron waft over the crowd. It's symbolic, of course, a way to cleanse the space, honour the dead, and remind everyone that this party only exists because someone stopped breathing. He pauses behind you. You freeze. Is he sniffing you? He places a piece of fresh papyrus in your hand and whispers, "Write down a truth." You scribble, This beer tastes like bread soup, and pass it back. He nods solemnly. Apparently that counts. Then, cue the music again. The flutists switch to a livelier tune. The dancers toss their wigs into the air and someone yells, "More goose!" The spell breaks, and the party swells with laughter and renewed energy. But even with the chaos, even as servants rush to refill dishes of lentils and bowls of pickled radish, there's a constant undertone, a pulse of something spiritual. You can't help but feel like you're being watched, not by the guests, but by the painted eyes on every wall, by the statues of Anubis and Isis standing silently by the doorway, by the soul of the man you're supposedly honouring, maybe lingering in the folds of linen on the altar, maybe laughing at your toast. You glance upward. Stars now wink above the palm fronds. The night is young, but the rituals are only just beginning. You sip your beer again. Still warm, still chunky, still oddly comforting. And deep in your gut, you know, this is going to be one very long, very strange night. You're beginning to accept that this feast operates on its own logic. One part religious rite, one part culinary dare, and at least 3 parts bad decisions. And now, you're about to make another, drinking the local beer again. Let's be honest, this isn't the crisp, cold pint you might be used to. No citrusy hop notes, no frothy head. This is Egyptian beer, brewed the old-fashioned way, which is to say, a hot, sludgy mess. It's thick like porridge, sour on the tongue, and often contains stray bits of barley that haven't fully broken down. Some cups even come with a small strainer lid, but yours has floaters. You choose to believe it's just fibre. That's a choice you make several more times tonight. The stuff is everywhere. More common than water, more beloved than wine. Beer isn't just a drink here, it's a cultural foundation. Farmers are paid in it. Children drink it. Priests bless it. The goddess Hathor, who's technically the deity of love, joy and drunkenness, practically demands it. And the nobles? They have entire breweries on their estates. That means what you're drinking was probably made just steps away by sun-scorched workers, stirring mash in clay tubs with their bare feet. You wish you didn't know that. Historians still argue whether beer served in feasts like these was intentionally extra strong for the ritual, or if it just ended up that way from poor quality control and enthusiastic yeast. Either way, this isn't a gentle buzz. This is getting kicked in the brainstem by ancient carbohydrates. A servant passes by with a tray of fresh jugs. You notice they're half buried in baskets of sand to keep them cool, a relative term when the ambient temperature could cook fish. You reach for one, but your neighbour beats you to it. He smiles, revealing exactly 4 teeth, and offers you his cup in return. It's a communal culture, after all. You nod, take a polite sip, and immediately regret your entire lineage. But here's the thing. This beer is sacred, quite literally. It was said that beer had divine origins, created by the gods not just for pleasure, but to save humanity. Legend has it that when the goddess Sekhmet went on a murderous rampage, Ra tricked her into drinking dyed beer, which she mistook for blood. She got so drunk she passed out, and thus the world was spared. That's right, the planet was saved by a blackout. So every time you gag on that thick, foamy brew, just remember you're drinking a myth, possibly a mistake, maybe both. As the beer flows, so does the conversation. It turns sloppy. Laughter rises in hiccuping waves. Someone knocks over a bowl of chickpea mash and declares it a sacrifice to Sobek. Someone else offers a toast to the guy who invented sandals. You find yourself nodding earnestly, like that's the most profound thing you've ever heard. A group of younger guests starts chanting a drinking song in unison, clapping, swaying, sloshing their drinks onto their linen skirts. You catch a few lyrics, something about crocodiles, date palms, and possibly losing one's wig in the Nile. The rhythm is infectious, but you're mostly trying not to choke on your barley bits. A priest nearby is watching closely. He's scribbling something on a roll of papyrus while sniffing each jug of beer. He mutters under his breath. Maybe a prayer, maybe a curse. You lean over and ask what he's doing. He replies, keeping score. Of what? He doesn't say. Then, crash! A jug shatters near your feet. Everyone turns. A red-faced guest is slumped over his table, arms dangling, snoring loudly. His fellow diners cheer and declare him blessed by Hathor. 2 servants drag him off, one holding his sandals like trophies. You're not far behind, honestly. There's something both thrilling and terrifying about the pace of this feast. No one seems to know where the line is. between ritual and revelry, respect and ridicule, worship and blackout. It's all blended, like that beer, and you're floating right in the middle. You try to slow your drinking. You really do. You pace yourself with honey cakes and fig slices, but the beer just keeps coming. One jug, then another. A priest insists on a ceremonial toast. Then a dancer offers you a lotus-flavored cocktail that might as well be a punch to the kidneys. It's not even cold. And just when you think you've caught your balance, the floor beneath you shifts. Not physically, just perceptually. The flickering oil lamps stretch shadows long across the walls. Faces blur and blend. The walls seem to pulse, like they're breathing. The carved eyes of Anubis follow your every move. Your stomach churns. You steady yourself on the low table and try to blink the room back into focus. You're sweating. Your linen robe clings to your back like wet tissue. The scent of roast goose, fermented mash, and human armpit isn't helping. In a corner, two guests argue about whether beer should be used in funerary offerings, or kept for the living. One insists it feeds the car in the afterlife. The other claims it's just a good excuse to get drunk. The truth? Probably both, as usual. And that's when it hits you. You are completely, cosmically, undeniably drunk. Not, I can still recite my address drunk. More like, I think that statue just winked at me drunk. You lean back. A priest passes by and places a garland of lotus petals around your neck. You thank him. He tells you it's to absorb your excess heat and ward off demonic breath. You just nod, very slowly. So here you are, hours into a feast for the dead, full of bread soup beer, sweat-soaked linen and questionable decisions. And you're only just getting started. Your head is gently spinning now, just the way the stars above do when you tilt your gaze toward the night sky and try to focus on any single point. Spoiler, you can't. Everything blurs, including your sense of dignity, which is steadily melting like beeswax in the sun. A servant brushes past, his tray stacked with more drinks and a large bowl of something sticky and fragrant. You make out dates, honey, and ground nuts mashed into soft cakes. You grab one, mostly for survival. It tastes brown, but comforting. Probably your best decision tonight. Then someone shouts, "Let's see the robes!" and all attention swings toward the courtyard steps. Down comes a line of young attendants, each clad in sheer linen robes so thin you could mistake them for gauze. They're bright white under the torchlight with a subtle shimmer that makes them look almost celestial, if celestial meant slightly see-through and very flammable. You squint. The lead dancer's tunic has golden thread woven through the seams. Beside you a guest whispers, "Imported from Byblos," like it's juicy gossip. You nod solemnly, pretending you know where that is. Here's the thing, Egyptian fashion doesn't mess around. It's light, breathable, and about as modest as a toga contest. Men wear wrap skirts called shendit, often pleated, and sometimes so tightly cinched that standing up becomes a negotiation with physics. Women don thin sheath dresses, held in place by shoulder straps and optimism. Jewellery is everywhere. Broad collars of faience beads, gold bangles, anklets with tiny bells, and earrings that dangle like miniature chandeliers. And then there's the makeup. Oh, the makeup! A temple girl plops down beside you, holding a tiny polished copper mirror and a palette of coloured pastes. She smiles, dips her finger into a pot of dark green malachite, and before you can object, bam! You've got eyes like a pharaoh. It stings slightly, but you don't say a word. The kohl, she tells you, wards off the evil eye and helps with sun glare. Scholars today still debate whether ancient Egyptian eye makeup had genuine medical benefits, or was just ancient glam with bonus superstitions. You're inclined to believe both. You glance around, suddenly aware of how underdressed you are. Your linen tunic is wrinkled, your sash is askew, and you definitely spilled something beer-adjacent on your hem back in section 3. Meanwhile, your fellow guests are strutting like runway models from 1300 BCE. A high-ranking official passes by, his cloak dyed a soft mauve, an expensive colour extracted from crushed murex shells and a clear flex of status. His wig is meticulously styled, shoulder-length, and oiled to gleam like obsidian. Yes, a wig. Most upper-class Egyptians shaved their heads to beat the heat and keep lice away, then wore carefully crafted wigs made from human hair, sheep wool or a mix. Fancy ones came with gold clasps. Yours, you suspect, is your actual hair. Embarrassing. Then comes the perfume ritual. Attendants walk among the guests with small alabaster jars of scented oil, usually made from myrrh, cinnamon, and, brace yourself, hippopotamus fat. It's smeared onto your wrists, your temples, and dabbed delicately under your chin. It's musky, intense. You feel like you've just been marinated. The smell is so thick you can practically bite it. And here's the fun part. Your perfume comes in the form of a waxy cone that's plopped onto your head like a melting scoop of ice cream. It slowly dissolves in the heat, releasing scent throughout the evening. You'd like to believe it's elegant. In practice, you feel like a slow-burning candle. A scribe nearby gestures for you to pose. You turn, and he sketches your profile quickly onto a piece of linen. You glance down. It's generous. He's definitely edited your nose. You thank him with a mouthful of date cake. Now someone else stumbles over. You recognise him vaguely. He was one of the loudest drinkers earlier. He's clutching a pair of sandals in one hand and a garland of onions in the other. "Trade?" he asks, eyes gleaming. You raise an eyebrow. He snorts. "Kidding. These are for the priest." You try to nod wisely, like that explains everything. This is the moment you realise that fashion in this world isn't just about looks. It's politics. It's piety. It's protection. What you wear says who you are, what gods you serve, what kind of funeral you expect, and probably whether you own a cat. Every ornament has meaning. Every colour has context. You're essentially wearing a resume, and yours says, "Confused but trying." A trumpet sounds, sharp and nasal, and all heads turn toward the far end of the garden. A priest of Anubis has entered the scene, draped in a jackal-headed mask and a black and gold striped tunic that ripples like water. Guests hush. He walks slowly between the tables, nodding to select individuals and murmuring phrases in formal Middle Egyptian. You have no idea what's being said, but the vibe is clear. Reverence, or maybe foreboding, possibly indigestion. He stops in front of you. Uh-oh. He holds out a ceremonial necklace, beads shaped like tiny scarabs, and places it around your neck. You say thank you, he whispers. Now they'll know who you were. That's comforting? You're not sure. And then, just like that, he turns and disappears into the shadows. The music resumes, softer now. A harp, a light flute, a rhythmic rattle of the sistrum shaking like silver wind. You sit quietly for a moment, listening to the sound mingle with the crackle of torches and the soft smoky hum of incense. You exhale, your stomach's full, your skin is oiled, your eyeliner's doing a lot of the heavy lifting, and you smell like sacred meat rub. Whatever this night is, it's not over. It starts with a smell. Not an unpleasant one exactly, more of a sharp funk. Something between wet clay, riverbank, and what you might imagine a crocodile's breath smells like. You wrinkle your nose, then realise everyone around you is doing the same. A servant wafts by, carrying a tray lined with small ceramic pots. Inside, a greyish-brown paste, thick, lumpy, glinting slightly under the torchlight. One of the guests scoops up a fingerful and smears it across their forehead with an almost religious expression. You eye your neighbour. "What? Is that?" "Crocodile dung," she replies cheerily. "Very cleansing. Wards off evil spirits and wrinkles." You blink. Surely she's joking. She is not. Let's pause here for a moment, because this is real. Crocodile dung was used in ancient Egyptian cosmetics, medicine, and, get this, birth control. Some texts suggest it was mixed with fermented dough and inserted... Well, let's not finish that sentence. Let's just say boundaries were different then. You politely decline the dung facial, citing sensitive skin. But the smell lingers in the air, mingling with roasted meats, sweaty bodies, and the ever-present perfume of slowly melting head cones. You're beginning to wonder if this entire event is just one long olfactory gauntlet. A drummer beats out a rhythm on a stretched goatskin frame, and a dancer begins to whirl. She's barefoot, wearing a belt of shells and bangles that jingle with every motion. Around her waist is a sash dyed with henna and embroidered with symbols, ankhs, lotuses, and little cats. She twirls once, twice, then flips upside down into a perfect handstand, right on the table. Guests cheer. You duck, narrowly avoiding a sandaled foot in your barley bowl. Her balance is flawless. Her aim? Not so much. A goblet of wine topples across the table, splashing your robe in sticky crimson. She lands gracefully. You, less so. You mop your sleeve with a fig leaf and attempt to smile. The dancer bows, then sits beside you, panting. She offers you a lotus flower. For luck, she says. You tuck it behind your ear, hoping it offsets the swamp smell clinging to your tunic. She leans in conspiratorially. This is nothing. Last week a dancer set a wig on fire mid-cartwheel. Still finished the set. You nod, impressed and slightly concerned. And here's where things get weird. A group of women wearing ceremonial wigs and gold amulets begin walking in a slow circle, chanting. Their voices are low and rhythmic, rising in soft crescendo. Each holds a small bronze mirror, which they tilt toward the torchlight, casting dancing reflections across the walls. One of them, older, eyes lined with thick kohl, approaches you and presses a cool slab of alabaster to your cheek. You are marked by Hathor, she whispers. You consider asking what that means, but she's already drifted away, lost in the swirl of movement and chant. The music builds again. More instruments join, double-reed pipes that wheeze like ducks in distress, and sistrums that rattle with metallic fervour. It's hypnotic. You find yourself swaying without meaning to, your body gently mimicking the rhythm. And then comes the perfume relay. Servants carrying jars of oil and scented wax begin moving among the guests again, reapplying head cones, dabbing wrists and fanning faces. The scent is overwhelming. Myrrh, cinnamon, almond, lily. One jar is labelled Essence of Sacred Blue Lotus. Another is unmarked but smells distinctly like roasted garlic and possibly monkey sweat. Someone splashes a bit on your feet. For grounding, they explain. You're definitely grounded. You're glued to your cushion, blinking through smoke trails, trying not to breathe too deeply. Or maybe too shallowly. Hard to say. There's movement behind you. You turn and see a priest shaking what looks like a carved rattle over someone's head. He mutters a blessing, then dabs a bit of the crocodile paste on the man's shoulders. Your neighbour leans over. Protection against Seth, she whispers. Ah, yes, Seth, the god of chaos, storms, and very bad vibes. Historians still debate how seriously Egyptians took Seth's interference in everyday life. Was he seen as a necessary evil, a cosmic force to be appeased, or just a handy scapegoat for bad luck and spilled beer? Either way, smearing yourself in river predator dropping seems excessive. You excuse yourself for a brief walk, hoping the night air will clear your head. The garden outside is quieter, filled with the hum of insects and the gentle burble of a water basin. You dip your hands in, splash your face. Cold relief. Brief clarity. Then someone taps your shoulder. It's a child, no more than 10, with shaved eyebrows and a gold pendant. He holds up a small clay dish. For your eyes, he says. Inside is a paste of black galena and goose fat. You apply a bit under your lashes. It's cooling, surprisingly soothing. Also, it smells better than anything else you've put on your body tonight. Back at the feast, the tempo has picked up. Guests are dancing now, arms raised, fingers snapping, torches flare. The smell of incense and sweat is thick, but you're numb to it. Or maybe you're just fully marinated. Either way, your senses are adjusting. You slide into a seat beside a group of women arguing about which temple dancer has the best perfume blend. Mine has resin from the trees of Punt, says one. Yours smells like donkey hair and lemon. You smile faintly. This feels oddly normal. Someone hands you a fresh head cone. You accept it with grace. You're shiny, smelly, powdered, painted, and slightly pickled, but you're still here, somehow, and the night hasn't even hit midnight. You're not sure when it happened, but the music has completely taken over. It's no longer background noise, it's the pulse of the party, and it's loud. Not modern concert loud, where your ears ring for a few hours afterward. No, this is ancient loud, raw, relentless, a rolling, clattering, tooting storm of woodwind, hide and bronze that vibrates in your bones. A musician strolls past, carrying a long, curved, double-reed pipe that looks more like plumbing than an instrument. He raises it to his lips and blows. The sound is, there's no other word, nasal. A rich, haunting wail cuts through the din like a goose honking in morning. You glance around. No one even flinches. To them, this is normal. Beautiful, even. This is the Zumara, or something like it. A primitive oboe made from cane, tied together with linen thread and sealed with beeswax. The reed buzzes like a hornet trapped in a papyrus scroll, and that's just one of the instruments in rotation. Across the courtyard, you spot a drummer pounding on what appears to be a stretched goat skin tied to a pottery ring. He's not holding back. With every slap, dust jumps into the air. He grins madly, sweat pouring from his scalp, as though he's trying to awaken the gods through percussion alone. Then come the clappers. Literal wooden hands carved from tamarisk, click together in rhythm like two applauding skeletons. And further back, a girl shakes a sistrum, a sacred rattle made from a copper loop strung with little rods that jingle when moved. It's the official instrument of Hathor, goddess of music, love, beauty, and not so coincidentally, beer. You begin to notice something peculiar. This isn't just music. It's coordinated chaos. The tempo rises, drops, twists. Some rhythms clash. Some swirl together in a hypnotic loop. It's like jazz. If jazz were played on 5 instruments made of bones, reeds, and animal parts by people half drunk on bread beer. Historians still argue whether these musical ensembles were professionally trained temple staff, enthusiastic amateurs, or just whoever could stay upright and blow into something. Whatever the truth, you're suddenly aware that the music isn't stopping. At all. It goes on, hour after hour, not as performance but as ritual. The sound draws spirits closer, invites gods to feast, reminds the ka of the deceased that it is remembered, celebrated, surrounded by joy. This isn't entertainment, it's a summoning. A girl dances in the middle of the room. Her anklets are made of tiny copper bells that jingle with each stomp. She spins and lands in a deep bow, arms extended. A man in a leopard skin claps exactly once and throws a pomegranate onto the floor. Everyone cheers. You still don't understand the rules. Then there's the heat. You were warned about Egyptian heat. But this is different. It's the kind of heat that presses in, not just from the outside, but from every direction. Earth, breath, body, flame. The oil lamps flare, torches hiss, and the wax cone on your head is now a full-blown drizzle down your neck. You feel like a birthday cake that's been left out too long. A woman beside you, face painted with red ochre, and wearing what looks like peacock feathers for earrings, leans over and wipes the sweat from your brow with a cloth soaked in rose water. You nod your thanks. She nods back. No words, just two very moist people sharing a moment of solidarity. You try to shift for comfort, but your linen robe is stuck to your back. You hear the slap of feet. Someone's dancing again. Maybe you. You honestly can't remember if you stood up. Then, quite suddenly, silence. Well, not total silence, but relative silence. The instruments pause, the dancers freeze mid-pose. You hear the crackle of the torches, the distant bray of a donkey outside the wall, and somewhere, a hiccup. A priest steps forward. He holds aloft a carved wooden sistrum larger than the others, inlaid with lapis lazuli and gold. He shakes it once. The sound is gentle, like tiny bones knocking politely. "Let Hathor hear," he says, his voice surprisingly soft. "Let the goddess see our joy." Everyone bows their heads, even you. Then he raises his hands and claps once, sharp and loud. The music explodes back to life. You jump. A girl screams in joy. The drummer drops into a frantic new rhythm. The flutist plays a note so high it nearly strips bark from a palm tree. It's chaos. Sacred chaos. You notice the musicians are positioned in the 4 corners of the garden, like they're holding down the very fabric of the space. Sound ricochets across the courtyard, bouncing from pillar to pillar, from linen curtain to gold leaf statue. Every surface here seems designed to echo, to amplify, to celebrate sound. But your ears? Your ears are on strike. You try to plug them subtly, using your fingers behind your garland of onions. Doesn't help. Someone hands you a fig. You eat it reflexively. Still doesn't help. A boy passes by playing a lyre. Badly. You appreciate the effort. He's missing half the strings, but full of passion. You pat his shoulder. He beams like he just pleased Horus himself. It's around this point you realize something. The music never really ends. It just shifts. Changes players. Changes instruments. One fades out, another fades in. It's a seamless stream, like the Nile itself, carrying you through the feast whether you like it or not. You're part of the current now, and as the night grows darker and the torches blaze higher, You understand something you didn't before. This isn't just noise, it's memory, it's ritual, it's the voice of a civilization trying to outsing death itself. And you're humming along. You hardly notice the moment the gods arrive. There's no lightning bolt, no angelic choir, no dramatic gust of wind, just a slow shift in atmosphere, like the room takes a deep breath. The musicians don't stop playing, the guests don't stop drinking. But something is undeniably different. It begins with the statues. You hadn't given them much thought before. They were background decoration, part of the scenery. But now they seem to lean in just a little closer. Bastet with her cat's head and golden earrings. Thoth with his long-beaked ibis face and scroll in hand. Hathor, serene and smiling, with her cow horns cradling the sun disk. Each is perched on a pedestal near a table of offerings. Figs, roasted duck, lotus flowers, polished bread loaves, even a small clay dish of what you suspect is more crocodile dung. You keep your distance. A line of priests enters from a curtained archway, chanting low and slow. They wear white linen robes that drag just slightly behind them, and sashes dyed with pomegranate. Each carries a small bundle of papyrus scrolls or a sacred object, an ankh, a sistrum, a censer wafting myrrh. Everyone stands, including you. This part of the feast is not optional. It's the moment where the barrier between living and divine thins, and you're expected, no, required, to behave, even if you're 3 cups deep into the world's most lumpy beer. The lead priest, older than sand and possibly already embalmed, raises his arms and begins to speak. You don't understand most of the words. Middle Egyptian isn't your strong suit, but the cadence is enough. Each phrase is stretched long, repeated 3 times, then echoed in softer tones by the others. Come, Bastet, lady of ointments and music, he calls. Come, Thoth, keeper of names and time. Come, Hathor, who drinks with the dead and delights the living. He gestures, and the statues are anointed with oil. It drips down their sculpted faces like divine sweat. Garlands are placed over their shoulders. Someone kisses the feet of Thoth, who honestly doesn't seem like the affectionate type. Here's what's wild. You start to feel like the gods are actually here, not metaphorically, but present. You can almost see Bastet blinking slowly. Thoth adjusting his scroll. Hathor tipping her head slightly as if to ask, "Are you enjoying the feast?" And that's the point. In ancient Egypt, gods weren't distant figures. They didn't sit on some cloud issuing vague prophecies. They attended, they watched, they smelled the incense and heard the music and tasted the bread, through you, through the priests, through the statues given offerings and reverence. It's what scholars call cultic presence. But tonight it feels more like emotional gravity. You're being weighed, not judged necessarily, but observed, noticed. The high priest dips a brush in ochre and paints a red circle on the floor. In the centre, a loaf of bread and a shallow dish of wine are placed. The priest murmurs something and steps back. The crowd leans forward. The bread shifts. Did it really? Or is that just your beer-fueled brain playing tricks? Hard to say. Historians still argue whether these rituals included sleight of hand, spiritual possession, or just heat-stroke hallucinations. You're open to all 3. Someone passes you a bowl of lentils with a small wax figurine on top. Place it at Bastet's feet, they instruct. You walk it over, bow slightly because everyone else does, and leave it on the pedestal. You swear her statue gives a little approving nod. Or maybe that was the flickering torchlight. Another priest calls for silence. He recites a prayer to Hathor, goddess of joy, beauty, love, dance, and, crucially, intoxication. It's her party, really. The phrase Lady of Drunkenness is used so often it might as well be her business card. Guests raise their cups. You do too, a toast to Hathor, then one to Osiris and then to the departed noble this whole feast is for. You still don't know his name. Someone whispers, "He owned half the linen trade." You nod like that explains everything. The priests step aside. A dancer enters barefoot, eyes lined so thickly with kohl they look like painted masks. She twirls, then freezes mid-motion, and begins speaking in a voice that isn't hers. Gasps ripple through the crowd. Is she possessed? Channeling a goddess? Is this a performance? Again, no one agrees. Ancient sources are vague. Modern scholars shrug. But the dancer's voice drops into a rhythm that sounds like old stone cracking, and her words make your skin prickle. Feed the gods, and the gods will remember. Dance for Hathor, and she will shield your name. Pour for Osiris, and he will open the field of reeds. The moment breaks. She blinks. Her shoulders drop. She steps back. The crowd exhales. Then a new wave of offerings begins. Platters are carried forward, this time not for guests, but for the divine. Roast goose, pomegranates, loaves shaped like hieroglyphs, even an entire roast fish plated on a bronze tray with eyes still intact. You watch as each item is presented to a statue with care, then carried away to be consumed, not by mouth, but by spirit. Afterwards, the same food is sometimes redistributed to the guests. It's called reversion of offerings. You might be eating after Bastet. Technically, it's weirdly flattering. Suddenly your neighbour leans in. Want to hear something odd? They whisper. They say Hathor once got so drunk she forgot she was a goddess and slept in a field of onions for 3 days. You smile. Sounds about right. The statues seem to glow a little in the torchlight. Their stone faces somehow softer now. You sip your beer. You say nothing. Because whether or not the gods are physically here, they're watching. And you're definitely underdressed. You're mid-sip, trying, without much success, to enjoy your 6th cup of warm, chewy beer, when a plate of what looks like purple jellyfish lands in front of you. It wiggles. You blink. It's not jellyfish. It's lotus jelly. And that's when the entertainment really begins. A trumpet blares, shrill and sudden. You nearly spill your drink. Everyone turns as 2 shirtless attendants push open the bronze doors to the side courtyard, revealing what can only be described as a travelling dinner circus. At the centre is a young man, maybe 15, with a shaved head, painted eyebrows, and an outfit consisting of a gold loincloth and sheer nerve. He's balancing on a clay amphora. On his shoulders is a girl, draped in red linen and lotus petals, balancing 3 cups on her head. Yes, cups. Of wine. Full ones. And this is just the appetizer act. As drums start pounding again, so much for that quiet prayer to Bastet, the acrobats leap into motion. You try to focus on your plate of grilled catfish, but it's hard when someone's doing cartwheels over your lentils. The amphora boy now stands on one hand. The wine girl is somehow pirouetting on his back. Another dancer, wrapped in silver-threaded gauze, somersaults across the low tables, kicking a bowl of honeyed chickpeas into your lap. You consider this a blessing. Free food is free food. The entire room becomes a blur of movement, laughter, and the occasional scream of surprise. One particularly bold acrobat lands directly in front of a scribe, does a split, and pours wine into his cup without using her hands. The scribe stares like he's just seen the afterlife. Probably has. You glance across the room and see a familiar figure, the embalmer from earlier. He's watching the spectacle with a kind of glazed amusement, casually eating a goose leg. He catches your eye and raises it in salute, grease glistening on his fingers. You return the gesture with a weak smile, wondering if this counts as cultural diplomacy. Then it happens. A new performer bounds into the centre, a woman with short hair, bare feet, and a tunic dyed deep indigo. In her hand, a lotus blossom soaked in something thick and red. She bites the stem, drinks the juice, then opens her mouth and exhales a stream of deep, slurred poetry. Everyone hushes. It's a performance of the Drunken Lotus, a traditional recitation usually saved for feasts honouring Hathor. Equal parts sensual and sacred, it tells the story of a priestess who drinks so much she forgets the difference between love and worship, and decides that's a good thing. The performer sways, eyes closed, voice low. Every word spills out like honey mixed with wine. Around you, guests lean in. Some grin knowingly. Others close their eyes and nod. A few, let's be honest, are asleep upright, smiling. And then she stumbles. It's not part of the act. She covers her mouth, then hurls a stream of lotus wine and half-chewed lentils onto the nearest table. Your table, your lap. You stare in horror at your newly christened robe. The man beside you gasps. The woman across from you starts laughing uncontrollably. The priest in the corner mutters something that sounds suspiciously like, "Typical," but no one panics. No one shames her. 2 dancers rush over, help her up, and bow deeply. The crowd cheers as she's whisked away behind a curtain, and just like that, the performance continues with new dancers, fresh music, and even more aggressive tambourine playing. You're given a cloth. It smells like rosewater and goat. You do your best to clean your lap while pretending none of this just happened. Someone offers you a refill. You accept. And here's the thing. No one even bats an eye. Because this is exactly what the ancient Egyptians expected from a proper feast. A little chaos, a little surprise, a lot of bodily fluids. This wasn't a dinner party, it was a rehearsal for the afterlife. The goal: make the dead feel so celebrated that they'll pass on joyfully and carry your good behaviour with them to the gods. Historians still argue whether these performances were scripted, spontaneous, or fueled entirely by fermented fig juice. But what's clear is this: if you don't leave the feast with something on your robe, you didn't feast hard enough. You feel a tap on your shoulder. It's a girl no older than 10 offering you a small wooden box. Inside, a linen cloth, a dab of lotus oil, and a small clay tablet stamped with a cartoonish image of Hathor raising a cup. You smile, a souvenir. She grins. For your first splash, she says. Apparently you've been inducted. You settle back into your cushion, now slightly damp, and watch as the feast roars on. The acrobats are stacking themselves again. One is balancing on a pole held by 2 dancers spinning in place. Everyone's clapping, stomping, laughing, yelling. A woman in a wig covered in real flower petals sneezes and sends a cascade of pink onto the floor. No one minds. You take another sip of your drink. It tastes like barley and dirt and victory. Because here's the truth. You came to this feast wide-eyed and wary, unsure if you belonged. But now you've been splashed, stomped on, and serenaded by a drunk poet with questionable aim. You're one of them now. You're still wiping dried lotus wine off your lap with what might technically be a sacred cloth, when someone to your left leans in and whispers, "Want to know whose tomb was just looted?" You pause mid-blot. That's a normal sentence here. The woman grinning beside you is wearing a falcon-headed ring and has teeth stained slightly pink from too many pomegranate seeds. She doesn't wait for your answer. Henny the grain keeper, last week. They say his heart scarab was sold for 3 jars of beer and a cat. You nod slowly. That seems low. She shrugs. He cheated everyone in life. Nobody's sad. And just like that, you're in the middle of ancient Egypt's favourite dinner game. Tomb talk and gossip. Turns out, for all their reverence toward the dead, ancient Egyptians were obsessed with who was buried where, with what, and how recently it had been stolen. They were like TMZ reporters, but with more crocodile danger and fewer vowels. A man across from you, he smells heavily of frankincense and confidence, leans forward and chimes in. They found the embalmer's apprentice drunk in the Valley of the Kings, carrying 2 stolen ushabti and an amulet shaped like a baboon. Someone gasps. Someone else immediately asks for a name. Historians still argue, he replies, smirking. Apparently vague answers count as facts at this feast. But it's not just tombs on everyone's lips. It's curses, scandals, and who's definitely not welcome in the field of reeds. Your neighbour lowers her voice and points subtly to a well-dressed man 3 cushions away. That one, banished from Karnak temple rites for bringing beer instead of incense, and the wrong beer. You raise your eyebrows. Or she nods solemnly. The cheap kind. Scandalous? As plates of grilled quail and lotus seed paste circulate, so does the conversation. You hear about a priest who tried to marry a foreigner and was forced to cleanse himself with crocodile spit. A tomb painter caught slipping love poems into sarcophagus inscriptions. And a noblewoman who buried her cat in her husband's tomb without asking. It's considered very offensive, your tablemate clarifies. You can't just add cats to someone's afterlife plan. Apparently, even in the realm of eternal rest, boundaries matter. Then comes the rumour that hushes everyone for a beat. Someone has been stealing food during offerings, mid-ritual, right off the altar. You glance instinctively at your plate. Is your pomegranate second-hand? Has your fig mingled with divine essence? Should you be worried? Maybe. Probably not. You eat it anyway. A priest nearby overhears and sighs. We pray and sing and bless the food, and then some fool thinks Osiris won't notice a missing goose leg. You offer your sincerest wow, while wondering how fast you could get rid of the goose leg you just accepted. The conversation shifts again, now to a string of ominous dreams several guests have had lately. Dreams of serpents, dark rivers, and laughing statues. Dreams where they walk into tombs and find themselves watching their own funerals. I dreamed I was a jar, one man offers. An empty one, someone asks. No, he replies, completely serious. full of bees. You want to laugh, but the way the others nod, thoughtful, even impressed, makes you rethink. Maybe dream bees mean something important. Maybe everything does here. The most chilling story comes from a soft-spoken scribe in a leopard skin cloak. He sets down his reed pen and says quietly, "My cousin dug into a tomb last season. Just a small one, no seal on the door. Thought it had been abandoned." Everyone leans in. He came back pale, said he saw a woman sitting upright in her wrappings, eyes open, smiling. You freeze. "What did he do?" you ask. The scribe sips his beer. "He closed the tomb and ran, then spent 7 days fasting. Still won't talk to goats." That last part throws you. "Goats?" He nods. Says they know. You stare at your beer. Maybe you've had too much, or maybe you're finally understanding the deep, strange logic of this place. To these people, the dead aren't gone. They're just changed, repositioned, still watching, still remembering who poured the good wine and who told dirty jokes at their funerary feast. So when a guest gets up and announces loudly, "To the most dignified dead man I've never met, may his grave never be damp and his wife always be quiet," no one laughs. But no one stops him either. You think about the man this whole party is for. You've never seen him. He's likely lying in a tomb not far from here, wrapped in resin and linen, surrounded by amulets and sweet bread. His K might be hovering right above your head. You try not to look up. Someone raises a cup. "To the noble Kasa," a chorus responds. "May he party forever." You follow suit. To Kasa, wherever you are. The shouting begins as a chant. You're still nursing the remnants of a pomegranate-stained beer and quietly judging the flavour of your third goosewing when the rhythm changes. You hear the unmistakable shuffle of sandals against stone, the clink of ceremonial jewellery, and then a loud thump. You turn. A group of priests is marching in from the side gate. Not walking, marching. Their linen robes flare with each step. They carry staffs, incense burners, and expressions like they've just had a very long meeting with very annoyed gods. Leading them is a man painted from neck to foot in white chalk. He wears a leopard skin cloak over his shoulders and carries what looks like a ceremonial fly swatter made of palm fibre and gold beads. This cannot be good. He slaps the fly swatter against the ground once, thwack, and the music dies mid-reed blast. A few dancers freeze mid-move. Someone drops a fig. The air goes still. The lead priest's voice booms. The sacred wrestling of Mayat and Nisfet begins. You blink. Sorry, the what now? Before you can ask, the priest points straight at you. You, visitor, rise. You hesitate. You're sticky, mildly drunk, covered in floral goo, and your legs have long since gone numb from sitting cross-legged. But this is Egypt. Saying no isn't an option. You wobble to your feet. 2 priests approach you, each holding a rope circle, and toss one over your shoulders like a collar. Another hands you a small wooden stick shaped like a cobra. "Weapon of order," he explains. Still stunned, you're led to the centre of the courtyard where a square of sand has been marked out with chalk lines and petals. Opposite you, another man dressed in black, his eyes painted thick and angular, wearing what can only be described as a sinister smirk. He's holding a reed bundle. "This is Isfet," the priest says, gesturing at him. "Chaos." You glance down at your cobra stick. "Right," you whisper. "And I'm Ma'at. Balance. Justice." The priest nods gravely. "Try not to lose." Fantastic. A drummer resumes a slow beat, deep and low. The crowd circles the sandpit, murmuring excitedly. One woman yells, "Watch the left hook!" Someone else offers you a dried apricot for strength. And then, "Go!" Isfet lunges. You duck, flailing your reed snake wildly. It hits him in the shoulder. He laughs. You try to sidestep. You trip over your own sandal. Somewhere in the crowd, someone's chanting your name, or a name that sounds vaguely like yours. It might just be encouragement, or a warning. You recover quickly, swing your cobra stick again, and manage to tap Isfet on the head. He gasps, then collapses, slowly, dramatically, like a temple actor in full myth mode. The crowd erupts in cheers. You look up, panting. The high priest raises both hands and declares, "Ma'at prevails. Balance is restored." A cheer goes up. Flowers are thrown. A small child hands you a garland made of garlic and onion. You bow deeply, trying not to fall over. You've just won a cosmic wrestling match in front of 100 strangers and 36 god statues. You're either a hero or a very lucky drunk. Back at your cushion, people pat your back and offer you more food. One guest insists on sketching your likeness into the margin of his papyrus scroll. Another calls you the Avenger of Lentils. You accept the new title with dignity, and yet you can't help but wonder what just happened. See, these ritual dramas were common in big banquets. The struggle between Ma'at, order, and Isfet, chaos, wasn't just theatre. It was sacred narrative made physical. The Egyptians believed that by acting out the eternal battle, they were helping the world hold together for another day. Literally. Your stumbling stick fight just bought the cosmos a few more hours of stability. Historians still argue whether commoners ever played these roles, or if it was strictly priestly domain. Tonight, though, apparently anyone with a wobble in their step and a stick shaped like a snake is fair game. You wipe sweat from your brow and try to cool off with a cup of diluted wine. Your opponent, Isfet, joins you, now smiling like an old friend. "You hit harder than you look," he says. "You fell like a man who's done this before," you reply. He laughs. You clink cups. Meanwhile, the priesthood is now reenacting a different story. This one involving a bull's horn, a golden boat, and something about Thoth tricking the moon into showing up early. You tune it out and focus on chewing a sesame seed cake that tastes like a slightly dusty pancake. You're tired, but not in a bad way. You're part of something strange and enormous and timeless. Here, feasting and theology are the same thing. Performance isn't separate from belief. It is belief. Every joke, every dance, every ridiculous bout of ceremonial wrestling is part of holding back the darkness, keeping the gods pleased, keeping the world in balance, and as the next chant begins, you hear your name again. No, definitely this time. Someone's inviting you to join the next round of entertainment. You glance at your sticky robe, your garlic garland, your bruised pride. You hand your beer to the nearest priest. "I'm in." You think maybe the night has peaked. You've survived a cosmic wrestling match, been blessed by multiple gods, had wine regurgitated onto your lap, and somehow, you're still upright. Barely. Your linen robe is holding up better than your self-respect, and that garlic garland around your neck now doubles as both a fashion statement and fly deterrent. You settle back onto your cushion, ready to finally rest. That's when someone taps your shoulder and slurs, "You want to play a game?" You hesitate. It's not a question. The man, a heavy-set fellow with eyeliner smudged so aggressively he looks like he's melting, grabs your wrist and leads you toward a low table set in the corner of the garden. On it, a wooden game board painted in white and red squares, tiny carved pieces shaped like pyramids, lions, and what may or may not be a hedgehog. This is Senate, the national pastime of the dead and the living alike. You sit, you breathe, you already regret this. Your opponent explains the rules quickly and with alarming confidence. 3 sticks, flat on one side, round on the other. Throw them. Count how many round sides land up. That's your move. You nod, pretending to understand. You throw the sticks. One flips into your cup. Everyone cheers. You're not sure if you're winning, but people are definitely watching now. Senate was more than a game. It was a metaphor for the journey through the underworld, through danger, judgment, and ultimately rebirth. Each square represented a stage. Some were good, safe passage, a gift from a god. Others were traps, snakes, pits, divine pranks. The goal? Reach the end, ascend. Your opponent makes dramatic faces with every throw. His piece lands on a square painted with a scarab. "Oh ho!" Protected by Khepri, he says, chest puffed out. "Your turn." You land on a black square with jagged marks. "Oh," someone nearby murmurs. "The pit of reeds. Tough luck." You laugh nervously. "Is that bad?" "Not if you enjoy starting over." A servant offers both of you drinks, something dark and sweet. You sip. It's syrupy, flavoured with dates and possibly molasses, or blood. Hard to tell. Either way, your vision starts to blur at the edges. Then comes the second game. This one requires no board, just courage, questionable judgment, and an iron stomach. A woman appears carrying a tray with 4 small cups. Inside each something dark and fizzing softly. "The priests call it beer of Ra," she says with a wink. "Made under the noonday sun." You lift one to your nose. Immediate regret. It smells like someone tried to pickle a barn. You glance around. 3 other guests are raising their cups. "You drink," says the woman, "then walk in a straight line." You smile. "That's it?" She grins. "That's only it." You clink cups. Down the hatch. The taste is indescribable, like rotten plums married to burnt toast and set on fire with despair. You cough. Everyone applauds. You stand. The world tilts. You walk. The earth ripples under your feet. You take 5 steps and nearly fall into a tray of smoked eel. A dancer catches you, spins you back toward the table and declares, "He lives!" The crowd roars. You sit. You breathe. You vow never to trust bubbly beer again. Just as you think the games are over, a child appears holding something small and wriggling. It's a cup. There is a scorpion inside the cup. The child giggles and sets it on the table. "What is this?" you ask. "Catch the cup," the child says. "No." "Catch the cup," the crowd repeats, laughing. Apparently this is a popular after-dinner game. The goal is to catch the clay cup before the scorpion crawls over the rim. It's a test of reflex, courage, and exactly how much you've had to drink. You give the child a long, slow stare. Then, very delicately, reach forward. The scorpion lifts one leg. You stop. So does your heart. You wait. Then snatch the cup with both hands. The scorpion flips inside and starts crawling up the wall of the cup fast. You scream, quietly, with dignity, and toss it toward the dancer who caught you earlier. She catches it easily, laughs, and kisses your forehead. You have fast hands and no sense. You accept both as compliments. Games like these weren't just entertainment. They were social glue, ritual, bonding. In a world where death was never far and the gods watched your every move, play was a sacred kind of rebellion. A reminder that life could still surprise. That laughter mattered. Historians still argue how widespread games like these were. Were scorpion games common, or just something elite households indulged in for a thrill? Hard to say, but right now you feel like you've passed a test no scroll could teach. And despite everything, the sweat, the food, the paint smearing off your arms, the faint tingling in your fingers from that beer of Ra, you're smiling. You lean back, victorious. The Senate board is cleared. The crowd is cheering for someone else now, 2 guests balancing plates on their heads while juggling figs. One drops theirs. Everyone boos dramatically. The musician strikes up a new rhythm. The games continue. But you've survived. You've won. For now. You're breathing through your mouth now, not because the air smells bad, but because your nose is working overtime, just trying to keep up with the assault of sweetness, wafting in from the centre table. It's dessert time, and dessert in ancient Egypt doesn't hold back. A tray arrives at your table. It's glistening, sticky, and alarmingly floral. You see honeyed lotus cakes shaped like tiny pyramids, glazed date balls rolled in crushed almonds, fig paste moulded into hieroglyphs, and something that looks like a cinnamon-coated brick. That, your seatmate explains, is a festival loaf. It's dense, it's heavy. It might have been used in construction earlier. You pick up a lotus cake first, soft, golden brown, dusted with what you hope is powdered acacia. The scent is delicate but deceptive. You bite in and immediately realize this thing is syrup on a mission. Your teeth complain. Your brain shuts down for a second, and still, you take another bite. Across from you, a priest is carefully inspecting each dessert with the gravity of a man grading divine offerings. He picks up a fig tart, sniffs it, and nods. Acceptable, he says to no one. The musicians, perhaps sensing the sugar tsunami coming, have shifted from frenzied fluting to a more mellow groove, low drums and soft harp tones, something that lets you chew without losing your grip on reality. Someone passes around a small bowl of candied tiger nuts. They crunch loudly in your mouth and taste like if a hazelnut and a crayon had a baby. You try not to make a face. Everyone else is delighted. Next comes the date wine. Yes, dessert has its own drink pairing. You sip. Your tongue shrivels. Date wine is like drinking molasses through a hot reed straw. Cloying, syrupy, and about 3 minutes from giving you a religious experience. You're not even sure if your throat is coated or caramelized. It's powerful. It's dangerous. You love it. But the sugar starts doing what sugar does. First, you feel invincible. You laugh too loudly at someone's pun about a tomb robber and a donkey. You declare that your sandals taste like bravery. You try to stand up and immediately sit back down. The sugar high comes fast, so does the crash. Your eyelids grow heavy. Your limbs feel like they've been wrapped in damp linen. Everything around you slows down a beat. Then comes the digestion. Now this might not be pleasant, but it's real. Feasting in Egypt was intense. The combination of heat, booze, mystery meats, sacred fish, and enough honey to glue together a pyramid meant that eventually everyone paid the price. The groans begin quietly. One guest, then another. Someone excuses themselves to the corner of the courtyard where a decorative pot has been repurposed for, well, you know. A man in a gold collar declares, "My care is floating," before flopping onto his cushion with a loud thud. Even the gods seem to be looking away. A priestess appears carrying a small jar of what looks like thick greyish-green paste. "Kai fi," she announces, "for your belly." She offers you a spoonful. You ask what's in it. She just smiles. Trust Hathor. You swallow it. It tastes like licorice and tree bark rolled in regret. But it works. Kifi was a sacred incense, yes, but also a medicinal blend, often consumed to ease digestion, ward off evil spirits, or help with, let's just call it ritual overindulgence. Historians still argue about its exact recipe. You don't care. Your stomach stops revolting. A breeze stirs the torch smoke. For a moment everything is hushed. The sugar haze, the drum lull, the scent of roasted dates. It all lulls you into a strange kind of stillness. You're full. Too full. The kind of full where sitting up is an act of devotion, where your body wants to lie down and let your soul drift toward whatever heavenly nap zone the field of reeds has to offer. Beside you, someone is softly singing to themselves, a lullaby in a language older than vowels. Another guest is braiding lotus stems into tiny wreaths and placing them on the heads of anyone who stops moving. One lands on you. You leave it there, and yet, despite the creeping exhaustion, you can't help but marvel. This isn't just gluttony, it's devotion. Sweetness here isn't just pleasure, it's an offering, a gift, a promise to the gods that the dead are remembered with abundance. The lotus, the fig, the honey, they're all symbolic. They mean life. They mean rebirth. Still, you wouldn't say no to a pillow. Your stomach makes a noise you can only describe as spiritual. You clutch it gently, the way one might hold a rebellious kitten, and promise to be more moderate with your next pomegranate pastry. You lie back for a moment, just to rest your spine. You don't close your eyes. Okay, you do, just for a second. And somewhere you hear a voice, not in the room, but from the room. "You've eaten well," it says. You nod. You whisper, "Too well." And then the games resume. You're still reclined, belly swollen and spirit floating somewhere just above your garland of crushed lotus petals, when a voice slices through the mellow hum of digesting guests. "Would you like to see how your brain gets removed?" You open one eye. The embalmer has returned, same man, same leopard skin cloak, same unsettling calm that suggests he's either spiritually enlightened or extremely desensitized. He stands above you, holding a bronze hook the length of your forearm. It glints in the torchlight. You're not sure if you should run or applaud. You sit up slowly, mostly out of respect and partially because you've lost the ability to move quickly. "I call this part of the tour from nose to netherworld," he says cheerfully, as if you've just joined a Nile cruise. Guests are gathering around. You, apparently, are getting the front row seat. He places the hook gently on the table, next to a small assortment of other tools, copper scalpels, obsidian blades, and what looks like a whisk made of bundled reeds. "This one," he says, holding up the hook, "goes right through the nostril." A guest next to you winces. The embalmer grins. "We scramble the brain first, then drain it. Takes a few passes. Very satisfying." You sip your drink. It suddenly tastes metallic. He continues with the enthusiasm of a man describing his favourite hobby. The stomach, intestines, lungs, liver, all removed, washed in palm wine, wrapped in linen, placed in canopic jars, except the heart. Usually. Usually, you ask, already regretting it. "Well," he shrugs. "Some traditions leave it in. Others remove it and replace it with a stone scarab. Depends on the client, and whether they were a pain while alive." You smile weakly. "And the rest of the body?" "Packed with natron, salt, dries everything out. Then you wrap and perfume. The trick is not using too much resin, or you'll glue the poor soul shut." He waves his hand toward the courtyard, as if dozens of guests aren't lounging nearby, mid-goose leg. "I did our host, you know, Master Casa. Beautiful organs. Liver like a summer melon." There's a pause. Someone claps. You find yourself applauding too, half out of politeness, half because you don't want this man not liking you. He moves on to a side table, where a series of canopic jars are arranged like trophies. Each bears a different head. Jackal, baboon, falcon, human. "The sons of Horus," he says. "They guard the organs. one for each: stomach, intestines, lungs, liver. Which is which, you ask? He grins. Ask them. They don't always agree. Guests chuckle nervously. You sense this may not be a joke. A priest joins him, carrying a roll of painted linen. Together they do a short demonstration. No real body, thankfully. They mime the wrapping process, binding the air with practiced ease. 13 layers, the embalmer says, each one with a spell, each one a promise. Someone raises their hand. Do you ever get it wrong? Oh, absolutely, he replies, but the dead rarely complain. You glance around. Everyone is riveted. You're not sure whether it's the fascination with death or just the slow, creeping horror of realizing what happens when you're no longer invited to the feast, but instead become it. The embalmer leans in closer, whispering, "You want to know the secret?" You nod slowly. It's not about preserving the body, it's about remembering the name. If your name is spoken, your soul lives. That's all that matters. He picks up the brain hook again, twirls it once and adds, "The rest is just plumbing." Historians still debate how widespread these embalming demonstrations were. Some say they were common at funerary banquets, a kind of morbid but educational interlude. Others argue it was a rare honour, reserved for high-status gatherings or particularly eccentric embalmers. Tonight, it feels weirdly right. The priest finishes with a short prayer, waving incense over the crowd. May you walk straight into the field of reeds. May your shadow never weigh more than your heart. The crowd murmurs in agreement. You're suddenly aware of your own heart, thumping slowly beneath layers of wine, goose, and vague dread. The embalmer packs up his tools, humming a cheerful tune that's entirely inappropriate for someone who just mimed brain extraction. He gives you a final nod. Sleep well tonight. Your organs are very important. You're not sure if that was a compliment or a threat. Guests begin to drift back toward the tables. The music picks up again, a soft melody now, perhaps out of respect. Someone hands you a fresh cup of beer. You drink it without tasting, and in your mind you whisper your name, just to make sure it still echoes somewhere beyond this world. Because in ancient Egypt the body may decay, but the name is forever. You're still processing the idea of someone praising your liver like a prize melon when you hear a loud thud at the outer gate, followed by the unmistakable sound of singing that is both off-key and off-script. You look up. The priest at the door freezes. The musicians pause. A servant mutters, "Oh no!" It's the peasant gate crashers. To be clear, this isn't the first time this has happened at a funerary feast, and it won't be the last. You hear them before you see them. A group of half-drunk, dirt-smeared labourers with sun-leathered skin, linen tunics patched with reed threads, and the swagger of men who have just spent a day building someone else's monument and think they've earned a night of somebody else's beer. And honestly, they kind of have. They tumble through the gate like a herd of tipsy donkeys, carrying clay jugs sloshing with homebrewed beer that smells like regret. One of them, a wiry man with a basket on his head, holds it high like a trophy. "Brought our own," he yells triumphantly, as if that makes this whole intrusion polite. The mood shifts. Some guests laugh, others look mortified. The priests exchange glances. You scoot slightly away from the ceremonial bread pyramid just in case someone tries to use it as a pillow. The lead gate crasher introduces himself. Neb. No title, no last name, just Neb. He's missing a tooth and wearing a necklace made of what you hope are decorative fish bones. "This is Paki," he says, pointing to a man with a barley stalk tucked behind his ear. "He used to wash camels for the priesthood. Got fired for singing during a ritual." "I was in tune," Paki shouts. They start pouring their own beer, thicker somehow than what you've been drinking. A guest leans over to you and whispers, "That stuff could preserve a goat." You decline politely when Neb offers you a swig. He shrugs and downs it himself. His eyes cross slightly. Everyone claps. You glance at the priests. They seem to have collectively decided that as long as nothing catches fire, it's fine. And in truth, these feasts were often fluid affairs. Sure, they began with high ritual and careful protocols, but once the sun set and the beer jugs multiplied, lines blurred, status faded, the living danced with the dead, and class could occasionally slip into something more like chaos. Historians still argue whether peasant guests were officially allowed at these affairs, or simply tolerated with a blind eye and a strong stomach. But there's plenty of ancient graffiti showing noblemen and workers drinking side by side, often with someone throwing up in the corner, which, conveniently, just happened near the embalmer's stool. He sighs and moves. Neb and his crew aren't subtle. One of them has climbed onto a statue's base and is shouting a song that rhymes onions with divine possessions. Another has somehow procured a lute and is plucking at it like he's trying to summon a falcon god. Paki, who turns out to be unreasonably good at juggling, is now juggling 3 rolls of festival bread and a painted fish. The crowd is loving it. One elderly noblewoman stands, raises a cup and yells, "Let them entertain the gods." The table roars approval. She sits back down, muttering, "At least they're better than that flute boy from last week." The peasants are delighted. Paki bows. Neb toasts the crowd with both hands, then drops one jug and yells, "A libation for Anubis," before slipping into a puddle of honey. And yet, somehow it all fits. Because this isn't just a feast, it's a reflection of life itself, messy, loud, filled with moments that blend reverence with ridiculousness. Everyone here is bound by something bigger than class, the reality that one day they'll all be in the same position as the guest of honour, dead, embalmed, hoped for, and if you can't laugh about that, you're in the wrong civilization. A dancer links arms with Neb and pulls him into a spinning circle of other guests. His fishbone necklace bounces wildly. Even the high priest smiles a little, just for a second, before returning to the solemn task of blessing a bowl of goose fat. One of the gatecrashers hands you a carved bone die. "For luck," he says, and then trips over a lyre. You keep it. Later you find yourself sitting beside Neb, watching torchlight flicker across the palm trees. His breath smells like fermented onions and barley mash. "You rich types," he says, not unkindly. "You get all the good feasts. But we remember 'em too. We sing about 'em. We laugh." You nod. You tell stories. He grins. "Damn right. No one forgets a party where a donkey stole the bread." You raise an eyebrow. Did that happen? Give it 5 minutes. And then, as if on cue, a braying sound echoes from the far corner of the courtyard. You stare at your beer. You stare at the donkey. You consider everything that's happened tonight, from god-invoking rituals to scorpion games to high-sugar near-death experiences. You smile. Because the peasants have brought something that even all the ceremonial pomp and sacred wine couldn't. Release. Wild, unscripted joy. The kind of madness that reminds you you're alive, just long enough to keep death at arm's length for one more laugh. The donkey sneezes into the lentils. Everyone cheers. The donkey's now wearing a wreath of garlic and has absolutely no idea why it's the star of the feast. But no one is going to tell it otherwise. It's been quietly led away from the lentils, but its legacy is already immortalised in at least 3 songs being improvised near the main courtyard fountain. The night has reached that peculiar stretch of time when logic begins to slip sideways, and even the gods seem to be raising their divine brows. Which is why, when someone yells, "Amun-Ra wants karaoke," no one questions it. No one even blinks. A sistrum rings out, a metallic rattle, bright and sudden. All heads turn as a high-ranking priest stumbles into the centre courtyard with the confident wobble of a man who's been drinking for 16 straight hours, and still believes he's the chosen voice of the sun god. He's magnificent in his linen cloak, now stained with wine, flower petals, and what may be roasted beetle sauce. Around his neck hangs an enormous sun disk amulet, swinging wildly with each theatrical gesture. "This," he says, pointing at the stars, "is for Amon-Ra, our brilliant blazing father who's probably watching right now." You can't tell if he's being reverent or just trying to impress a girl 2 tables over, but either way, it works. Someone hands him a sistrum and someone else begins drumming, and just like that, karaoke begins. Now you might be imagining a modest hymn or two, perhaps a verse from the Hymn to the Aten, something poetic and divine. Absolutely not. The priest launches into what sounds like a personal remix of every praise song he's ever learned. His voice is loud, uneven, and powered more by conviction than pitch. His chorus rhymes glory with dairy. Amun-Ra is praised for making cows, sandals, sunlight, and particularly good onions. 2 dancers join in with backup claps. A young boy accompanies him with wild tambourine shakes, clearly inventing the beat on the spot. The entire courtyard swells with noise. You glance at the statues. Thoth looks patient. Bastet seems amused. Hathor might be stifling a giggle. Someone places a lotus petal crown on your head. "You're up next," they say. You laugh. "I don't know any hymns." "Make one up. The The gods love improv. And so, still sticky with beer, decorated in onion garlands and fig paste, and high on either honey cake or mild dehydration, you find yourself standing in the courtyard of a nobleman's death feast, about to serenade ancient deities you barely understand. You open your mouth and sing. It's not good, but it's not supposed to be. You chant about the Nile, the fish that never answer your questions, the smell of sacred oils, and how Ra is probably annoyed about being invoked every 5 minutes. You even throw in a line about the donkey. Everyone laughs, everyone claps, and suddenly you're not embarrassed anymore. Because this is what these people do. They laugh their grief away, they sing into the yawning void, they dance for gods and cats and each other until their legs give out and their voices crack. Karaoke in this world isn't about pitch, it's about spirit. The spirit to live so loudly that the dead wake up to join the chorus. A guest jumps in with a flute solo so passionate it knocks over a wine jug. Another starts a call and response in praise of Hathor. Who brings the beer? Hathor does. Who blesses goats? Still Hathor. The courtyard becomes a temple, a stage, a confessional, and a tavern, all at once. Historians still debate how literal these late-night party hymns were. Were they serious acts of worship, silliness with the divine veneer, a little of both? Judging by the priest now crawling under the table to look for his sandal, while reciting an ode to Ra's left eyebrow, you'd guess yes. Beside you, Nebri appears with a makeshift drum strapped to his chest. Just an overturned bowl and a stick, but he plays it like he's leading Pharaoh's army. He chants a new hymn, praise to the gods who let us dance, praise to beer and slightly torn pants. A dancer twirls by, robe billowing, knocking over a stack of sesame bread. She doesn't stop. The bread doesn't mind. You collapse into a cushion, breathless and giddy. Around you, guests are taking turns, chanting praises, singing jokes, turning every emotion into melody. Someone toasts Osiris with a cup so full it sloshes onto their feet. A small boy raps on a tambourine while a priest tries to harmonize with a goat. No one's sure where the goat came from. No one questions it. And somehow, in the middle of all this absurdity, you feel it. That little ache behind your ribs. That soft, slow pull of something real. A moment of reverence nestled inside the laughter. Because beneath the wild joy and drunken singing, there's still that quiet thread tying everything together. Remembrance. Celebration. Life flaring bright in the face of death. You don't need perfect pitch. You don't need the right words. You just need to mean it. So you raise your voice again. And this time, you're not singing for laughs or applause. You're singing for Casa. You're singing for yourself. You're singing because the night is deep. The stars are listening. And somewhere, Amon-Ra might actually be clapping along. You're still humming your made-up hymn to Ra, something about sandals, sunlight and onions, when a young priest gently presses a new clay cup into your hand. It's small, ornately painted, and carries the scent of something unfamiliar. Ceremonial wine, he says with a smile. A blessing in liquid form. You sniff. It smells like overripe plums left in the sun too long and then dipped in herbs. But it's beautiful. The cup itself is etched with lotus petals and stars, its surface glazed with a shimmer that catches the firelight. You drink, he adds, and the gods remember your name. Well, no pressure. You raise the cup. The courtyard is still swirling with sound and dance, but you feel slightly removed now, suspended. This cup isn't like the others. There's an energy to it, something heavier. You drink, and the world tilts, not dramatically, not like a thunderclap, just slightly. Like the air suddenly changed direction and your stomach decided it wasn't interested in gravity anymore. You sit down quickly, which may have been more of a fool. Someone nearby is laughing, or crying, or maybe chanting. Everything sounds like it's underwater now. Your heartbeat has gone soft and echoey in your ears. You glance at the cup again. Ceremonial, huh? Across the garden, the statues of Bastet and Thoth seem taller, brighter. Or are you just closer to the ground than you thought? You squint. Are they moving? This was not normal wine. Someone hands you a bit of bread, perhaps sensing that you've just slipped into a spiritual side quest. You take a bite. It tastes like figs, and also memory. You're not even sure what that means, but it feels right. Suddenly, the stars above look closer, much closer. The palm trees are swaying in time with the music, which now sounds like it's coming from inside your chest. You lie back, slowly, carefully. You close your eyes for a moment, and now you're floating. There are voices, but distant. Familiar, though. One is calling your name. One is laughing like a child. One is whispering a spell from a language that doesn't exist anymore. You see sand dunes blooming with lilies, a boat made of silver sails across a night sky, stars rippling in its wake. You're standing beside Osiris. Or maybe you are Osiris. Your hands are made of papyrus, and your heart is hovering in a golden bowl being weighed against a feather. You think you're winning? Maybe. A fish walks past you, politely. You blink. The courtyard returns, but it's not quite the same. The light has shifted. Faces are glowing, not metaphorically. You're surrounded by beings, some human, some less so. A woman with the head of a lioness is laughing beside a man made entirely of blue crystal. A boy with hawk eyes hands you a sprig of mint and says, "You should sit up now." You do. You're back. Or mostly back. The priest who gave you the cup is kneeling beside you, fanning you with a palm leaf. "You drank from the cup of clay," he says softly. "Some say it's just wine. Others say it's brewed with water from the sacred well of Nun." You try to speak. Your tongue feels thick. "Which is it?" He shrugs. "Depends on what you needed tonight." Guests are still feasting and laughing, oblivious to your brief cosmic departure. A musician is playing a solo on the double reed pipe with her eyes closed. A group of dancers in gold-threaded sashes are spinning in near-silent harmony. Even the goat has calmed down. And you feel lighter, like something ancient and heavy has been rinsed from behind your eyes. You hold the cup again. It's warm in your hand. You notice an inscription around the base. You trace it with your finger. You can't read it, but you understand it. It says, "You were here." The idea of sacred cups is not unusual in Egyptian ritual. Some were used only for offerings, others reserved for initiates or priestly circles. But every so often, a guest would be given the wrong cup, or the right one, depending on your view. Historians still argue whether these cup of clay references are symbolic metaphors or actual psychoactive ritual vessels. Based on how the donkey now appears to be politely reciting poetry in your direction, you're leaning toward the latter. You rise to your feet slowly, unsure of what's real, what's symbolic, and whether your feet are on the floor or hovering slightly above it. Your friends, if that's what they are now, clap gently, not for a performance, but for your return. Neb appears beside you. You looked like you saw something. You nod. Everything. He nods solemnly. Yeah, that happens. He hands you a small lotus blossom soaked in wine. You press it to your forehead, and from across the courtyard, the high priest raises his hands again. "The gods have seen your heart," he calls, and they are pleased. Whether he means you specifically or the crowd in general doesn't matter. You believe it, and for now, that's enough. You're not sure how long you've been sitting there, blinking at the lotus blossom in your hand like it holds the answers to the universe. But your body has started to return to you, piece by piece. First your breath, then your fingers, then the familiar ache behind your knees from sitting cross-legged for what might be 7 consecutive centuries. Someone nearby yawns audibly. Another guest is massaging their temples with a block of cooled alabaster. Around you, the energy has shifted again. The sugar rush is gone. The divine wine is wearing off. And the hangover? She's arriving early. A group of priestesses begin circulating with bowls of scented oils and chilled cloths. They dab wrists, press herbs beneath noses, and gently pour cool water over the backs of necks. The hush that falls is deeper than silence. It's collective surrender. Welcome to Hatha's hangover protocol. A young temple girl kneels beside you, holding out a cloth soaked in mint and lotus. You press it to your face. It is a small, cold miracle. "You're pale," she says kindly. "That means you did it right." A small cluster of guests is lying flat on woven mats, groaning quietly. One man is curled around a bread loaf like it's a sacred artifact. Another is whispering apologies to Ra for things he doesn't remember doing. Across the courtyard, someone's wig is floating in a wine jug. No one has claimed it. You try to stand and immediately sit back down. 2 servants approach with clay jugs. One contains water, the other beer. Because of course it does. You take the water first. It tastes clean like a reed pond after rain. The beer? Somehow warmer and chunkier than earlier. You pass. The temple girl hands you a small clay figure shaped like a hippo. To guard your dreams, she says. You accept it solemnly. At this point you'll take all the help you can get. Then comes the oil rub. Another priestess begins massaging your temples with a mixture of olive oil, myrrh, and something that smells faintly like oranges left in the sun. Your head throbs. Your skin feels too tight. And yet, her fingers move in slow, practiced circles that unlock some hidden part of your spine. You might be purring. Nearby, someone is quietly retching into a decorative pot. Another priest fans him with a palm frond while singing a lullaby about the Nile's eternal patience. It is both pitiful and beautiful. Hathor, the goddess of love, joy, dance, and alcohol, was also considered the guardian of recovery. Her temple rites included not just ecstatic celebration, but soothing afterward. Because the ancient Egyptians, in their infinite wisdom, knew that pleasure without recovery was not divine. It was punishment. A servant hands you a tiny bowl of pickled radish and roasted chickpeas. To stabilize your center, he says. You don't ask questions, you just eat. It's sour, salty, grounding. The room feels slightly less upside down afterward. You notice the donkey has finally lain down. Even it looks hungover. A flower crown still sits crooked on its head. Guests are now murmuring to each other, slowly reassembling into humanity. The earlier madness has melted into soft companionship. There's a gentleness to this stage of the feast. People help one another up, share cloths, pass oil jars hand to hand like a sacred relay. You watch as a priest offers water to a dancer who earlier had tried to balance an amphora on her head. She smiles weakly, eyes smeared with streaked coal. He tucks a blanket around her like a father tucking in a child. Somewhere, someone starts humming a lullaby, one of those old temple tunes that references the stars watching over the Nile, the kind that children fall asleep to, and the elderly remember when they forget everything else. You join the hum without realizing. Historians often focus on the grandeur of Egyptian feasts, the foods, the gods, the sacred chaos. But here, in this quiet, shared fatigue, is another kind of sacred. The part where the walls between people soften, where sweat and song and too much fig wine have stripped everyone down to just being human. A priest leans down beside you and says gently, "The best feasts honour not only the dead, but also the living who survive them." You nod, and he places a lotus petal in your palm, to remind you that joy is work too. The musicians have put down their instruments. One is snoring softly into a harp. Another is cleaning out her reed pipe with a strand of her own hair. The air smells like rosewater and regret. Your limbs ache, but pleasantly. You feel like you've run a marathon inside a mirage. Across the courtyard, the statues remain lit in golden firelight. Hathor smiles gently. You'd swear she winks at you. Your eyes blur. You breathe in deeply, and for the first time tonight, you feel the softness of this civilization. Its willingness to party, yes, but also its care, its tenderness, the way it guides its people back from the edge of divine intoxication and gently reintroduces them to their own bodies. Someone passes you a fresh cloth. You wipe your face, straighten your garland, and stretch your arms. The oil on your skin makes your joints hum. You are sore, but whole, and still standing. Almost. The moon is high now, round and swollen, casting silver onto the garden stones, the wilted flower garlands, and the stained linen robes of half-asleep guests. A soft wind rustles the papyrus leaves, and somewhere near the fountain, someone is gently snoring beside a wine-drenched lyre. You think, this must be the end of the night. Wrong again. From the far end of the garden, a line of torches flares to life. The priesthood is moving again. Only now, they're not dancing or blessing loaves or passing beer like sacred baseballs. Now, they're solemn, quiet. Their robes, still wrinkled, some stained, have been redraped with care. Their eyes are focused, serious. One lifts a hand. The tomb awaits. The crowd stirs. You're gently herded with the others, feet shuffling over sand and stone. A few guests are still chewing. One man is carrying a half-eaten sesame loaf like a good luck charm. You're not even sure where your sandals are anymore. The torchlight flickers across painted walls as the procession winds down a narrow path toward the family tomb of the deceased. This is not just a symbolic journey. It's a final act of hospitality. You've eaten, you've danced, you've sung to the gods and poured wine on your own lap. And now you're walking the dead home, The tomb entrance is carved into a low hill behind the estate, flanked by sycamore trees and guarded by 2 stone jackals whose eyes catch the torchlight in eerie gleams. As you step closer, the air grows cooler. The scent changes, less of roast goose and incense, more of earth and damp stone. You enter. Inside, the tomb is narrow and low-ceilinged, its walls painted in meticulous detail. You recognize scenes from the Book of the Dead. Boats sailing across the sky, gods with animal heads, a man being weighed against a feather. The figure on the wall? That's Karsa, younger, thinner, smiling, eternally frozen in the moment between dinner and divinity. You bow your head. Someone behind you whispers, "He loved pomegranates." You nod. There are 3 painted into his offering table on the wall. One is already half peeled. Guests begin placing items into the tomb's small antechamber. A loaf of honey bread, a carved ivory comb, a small jug of beer. Someone even leaves a fig wrapped in linen, offerings not of extravagance but of memory. You feel something tighten in your chest. Not grief exactly. Something quieter, gentler. Reverence. The high priest approaches the sarcophagus, a low painted box resting atop a platform of polished stone. He carries a bowl of milk and a bundle of reeds. He speaks a prayer, low, rhythmic and hypnotic. To the one who ate among us, to the one who drank under Ra's sky, to the one who dances now in the field of reeds. He dips the reeds in the milk and sprinkles the walls. The guests respond with a quiet chorus, "May he never thirst." Another priest follows with a censer, filling the chamber with sweet smoke. It curls like ribbons around the offerings, the sarcophagus, the carvings. For a moment, the air glows. Then comes the final rite. Each guest is offered a small vial of oil. You receive yours, a tiny alabaster jar, cool and smooth. You step forward when called and anoint the painted lips of Case's figure on the wall. It's symbolic, of course, a gesture meant to open the mouth so the dead may speak, eat, drink, live in the afterlife. You whisper something as you do it. You don't plan to, but it comes out anyway. "Thank you." You step back. The priest nods. One by one, the guests repeat the ritual. Some whisper prayers, some jokes. One woman simply hums a lullaby. Each is a thread in a tapestry of remembrance. Historians still wonder how literal these rituals were. Did people truly believe the dead could speak again through paint and oil and softly spoken words? Or was it a communal performance, a cultural theatre of closure? But standing here, in the hush of a firelit tomb, you feel the answer. It doesn't matter. What matters is the doing. What matters is the name, spoken aloud one more time. As the ceremony winds down, you notice a young boy tucking a small clay figure, a cat, into the corner of the chamber. He kisses it first, then sets it gently on the floor. His favourite, the boy says. Outside, the stars seem sharper now, brighter. The moon casts shadows long across the sand. As you step from the tomb back into the night, something has shifted in the world. Something subtle. You can't name it, but it hums in your chest. The priests begin a chant, low, gentle, a pulse to guide the soul, and just like that the procession turns around, back toward the estate, back toward the garden, back toward life. No one speaks on the walk back. The quiet feels earned, sacred. You glance behind you once. The torchlight flickers in the tomb's doorway. You whisper his name one more time, Kassa. You walk back slowly, feet crunching over the sand, heart still somewhere in the tomb behind you. The garden appears again, glowing in the low firelight like a mirage you've already dreamed. The music has faded to a heartbeat thrum, just one drum, soft and steady, echoing your own rhythm as you return to the feast. Except now, it's no longer a feast. It's something gentler, slower. The edges of the party have softened into quiet circles of murmuring guests, heads bent close together, their voices low like prayers whispered through cupped hands. The torches flicker without frenzy. The wind moves without urgency. And then someone begins to dance. Not the kind of wild, foot-kicking, cartwheel through your lentils dance from earlier. This is different. It's one woman, barefoot. Her arms lifted slowly, palms turned to the sky. Her hips sway side to side, her robe brushing the ground like a tide lapping the shore. Around her, people begin to rise, stretching limbs, unclasping belts, shedding the weight of food and ritual and beer and everything else that's happened. You stand too, drawn in not by energy but by peace. The drum continues. Boom. Pause. Boom. Someone hands you a string of bells, tiny ones, delicate, tied with papyrus thread. You loop them around your wrist and raise your arm. The bells ring once, quietly, like a question, and then again, like an answer. Soon you are among them. Dancing, if you can call it that. Swaying is more like it, half gliding, half floating, your sandals finding the path made by hundreds of feet before yours. This is how they dance for the dead. Not to celebrate a life that ended, but to welcome it into what comes next, to tell the spirit, you mattered, you danced with us, you still do. Around the courtyard, statues flicker in shadow and fire. Bastet, her cat eyes shining. Thoth, contemplative and still. Hathor, now illuminated by a drifting scarf of incense smoke, smiling in a way that makes you feel seen, accepted. This is not mourning. This is the long exhale after grief. The field of reeds, the Egyptian version of paradise, isn't just a place. It's an echo. It lives in these moments, in shared breath and swaying bodies, in soft drum beats, and the way the night presses gently against your skin. Historians write about this part less. It's harder to document. There are no bold rituals here, no songs carved into limestone or chants preserved in papyrus. Just movement, just silence, just memory. But it may be the most important part, because here you're not a guest anymore. You're with them. A priest appears beside you, no longer grand or ceremonial, just tired, soft-eyed, holding a bundle of papyrus scrolls tied in red twine. He passes one to you. Write a line, he says, so they'll know you were here. You look down at the scroll, blank, clean, waiting. You think, you write, and that you understand now is the essence of it all. Not how loud you sang or how much you drank or whether you caught the scorpion cup in time, but that you remembered, that you were present, and that someone, divine or otherwise, will read your words later and smile. Someone calls your name. It doesn't matter who. You turn, you smile. A circle has formed around the central torch. Guests, peasants, priests, dancers, all holding hands. They sway in time with the drum. You step in, take someone's hand. They squeeze it once. In the centre, someone lights a small bundle of herbs, mint, sage, and something bitter you can't quite place. The smoke curls upward in a slow spiral. Everyone watches. May you rise, someone whispers. May you walk in light, another adds. May your name be carried, says a third. You close your eyes. The warmth of hands, the scent of sacred smoke, the beat of a drum you can now feel in your bones. You dance, not like before, not with steps or flourishes, just presence, just being. And in that stillness, in that slow circling hush of feet on earth and heart in air, you realize the gods are no longer watching. They're dancing with you. The courtyard is dim now, glowing with the quiet breath of dying torches and the amber coals of spent fire bowls. A few flickers still dance along the walls, catching on gold inlays and sweat-slicked linen. The music is a memory. The laughter faded into soft conversation or slow, contented silence. You're not sure how long you've been swaying. Time doesn't work properly anymore, but eventually the circle unwinds. Hands release, smiles are exchanged, and bodies, one by one, return to cushions, to mats, to corners of the garden now claimed as makeshift beds. You sink down with them. Your limbs are heavy. Your garland has half unravelled. You find a piece of lotus petal stuck in your hair. You leave it there. Nearby, a priest collects the final offerings from a platter. Crumbs of honey bread, fig skins, wilted herbs. He tucks them gently into a folded cloth. Nothing is wasted, not the food, not the moment. The donkey snores softly. You are cradled by the hum of 100 sleeping bodies, nobles, dancers, servants, peasants, and gods. And then, very gently, someone begins to wrap you, not fully, not tightly, just a linen shawl across your shoulders, another at your feet. Someone places a small garland of dried reeds beside your hand, not to bind you, but to bless you, a ritual of rest, a gesture to say, You made it, because in Egypt to sleep after a feast was a sacred act. Not an end, but a passage, and now you are passing. You feel yourself slipping into a different rhythm, one not marked by drum beats or laughter, but by breath and stars and the soft creak of a palm tree overhead. The priest returns. He holds a bowl of water. He dips his fingers in and flicks a few drops gently over your brow. For peace, he says, for dreaming. You whisper thank you. Someone places a small carved scarab at your side. To carry you through, they murmur. The night wraps itself around you. The last of the guests are already sleeping, some curled beside statues, some resting atop mats painted with protective spells. One priest is still awake, watching the stars like they're going to rearrange themselves just for him. You inhale deeply. The scents have changed. No more roasted goose or burnt beer foam. Just earth, ash, faint perfume. It's a scent that feels like the inside of a memory. You close your eyes and dream. You're safe now. The noise has faded. The feast is over. The gods have danced. The spirits have passed. And your name has been spoken aloud under stars older than language. You feel the warmth of the linen around you, not heavy, not tight, just a soft reminder that you are held, protected, remembered. The torchlight flickers lower, casting long shadows against painted walls, then finally dims to nothing. But you don't need light here. You don't need sight. You're already drifting. A breeze rustles the reeds outside the garden wall. The Nile flows nearby, silent and eternal, carrying dreams like little boats down its moonlit path. You hear the soft breath of others around you, the peace that settles after celebration, the gratitude of the living, the memory of the dead. You've danced in the court of Hathor, laughed with priests, wrestled chaos, serenaded the gods, been blessed with too much wine and far too little moderation, and now you sleep. Sleep like the tombs sleep. Sleep like the gods between offerings. Sleep like someone who has been seen and fed and filled with joy and sound and strange sacred light. Let the linen hold you. Let the drum beat in your chest grow quiet. Let the donkey rest too. Your name has been spoken. Your cup has been emptied. Your story is written in the steam of warm bread and the hush of midnight. You are part of the feast now, and the feast never ends, 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 and the feast never ends,